It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there.
Good evening, everybody. You're watching America First. My name is Nicholas J. Fuentes. We have a great show for you tonight. Very excited to be back here with you tonight on Tuesday. We have a lot to talk about tonight, lots to get into. Big show. Our featured story, we're talking all about the New York City mayoral race. Not good, but it's less good for some people. It's less good for some than it is for others. Yes, New York City has elected a Muslim socialist, for real this time, as their mayor. And honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. We'll talk about the result, but he won in a blowout victory over Andrew Cuomo. It seems that his vote get will be greater than both the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, and the Republican, Curtis Lee, will put together. Even if they teamed up, maybe they wouldn't have defeated him. This is the way the country is going. And of course, this was a very watched election, given how progressive Mamdani is, and there was so much hand-wringing and paranoia and alarm about this, and I think we all know the real reason why that is. It's very clear. It's not just that Zohran Mamdani is a radical progressive. It's not just that he's a Muslim immigrant and a democratic socialist. We all know that at the bottom of it all, like with everything else, the real reason there was so much acrimony about his ascendancy is because he said he would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he ever set foot in New York City. We all know that's the real reason. And that was apparent even in his New York City mayoral debate when, and this was perhaps the most striking moment of the campaign, he was the only, what was that noise? Is that my phone? Did you hear that too? Or what was that? I heard some really bizarre sound just now. Did I imagine that? Or did you hear that too? All right, I don't know. I don't know. Am I going crazy? I thought I just heard something. I don't know if that was in my imagination. Anyway, or if there's something under the desk. I know something fell. I don't know what that is. Anyway, where were we? Mamdani. Right. At the bottom of it, the real reason is, of course, this is where I was. It was the moment during the mayoral debate when everybody was asked, what country are you going to go to? Where are you going to visit when you're elected outside of the United States? And everybody went by one, and they said Jamaica. They said, I think one said Puerto Rico, and the rest of them said Israel. I mean, literally, it was that bad. They all said, we're going to Israel if we're elected. And strangely, the progressive Muslim socialist, anti-white, defund the police, radical, he got up and said, I'm not going to leave New York. I'm going to stay right here. It was basically like America First. And I think that has a lot to do with why this was such a difficult race and a difficult situation for a lot of people to accept. So we'll get into all that. We're going to talk about it. People in the live chat are saying it's a pager. Everybody's a little on edge these days. You never know. So we'll talk all about the result. We'll talk about Mamdani and everything like that. We'll talk about Bill Ackman, his effort apparently to bribe Sliwa at the last moment. We're also going to talk tonight about the continued fallout from my interview with Tucker Carlson last week. And tonight we're actually going to get a little bit deeper into the subject. And I want to focus on some of the form, the shape that the blowback is now taking. Let's get serious. Let's talk about something important. Last week, Tucker Carlson interviewed me, and there's been so much backlash and drama about this. Everybody's losing their minds. And they're talking in these terms. They're using this vocabulary. They say, he's a Nazi, he's an anti-Semite, he's a bigot. And some people are talking about it on another level. They're saying, oh, it's not about that. It's about Israel. And so underneath that basic layer about the usual stuff, the usual language they use, the name calling, underneath that conversation, people are saying, at the end of the day, this is about, and I said this last week, this is about the regional conflict in the Middle East, crumbling U.S. support for Israel, and the consequences for Israel when that comes to fruition in U.S. politics. You have other people saying, this is all a big distraction. Republicans need to focus on the election and fighting the Democrats, and they're sort of recusing themselves from a debate about Israel. They're recusing themselves from the Israel First, America First debate. They're saying we want Israel First Zionists and America First Republicans to all be on the same page to fight the left. That's another level. But I want to go a layer deeper. And so there's been so much backlash about the interview, and the backlash has been directed against Tucker Carlson. It's been directed at me. But tonight I want to specifically talk about how it's impacting J.D. Vance and the Heritage Foundation, because this is what they're really worried about. We can talk about Israel. We can talk about the Jews. We can do political talk shows. You can watch them. You can like the clips. But the question, as always, is how do we actually change anything? How is society actually going to reform itself? Some people say, what are we even going to do about this? Okay, clearly this has revealed the extent to which the Republican Party, and by extension America, is controlled by Israel. That's why there is this defamation, character assassination. That's why there's this freak out. These speeches we saw at the Republican Jewish Coalition this weekend, people say, what do we even do about this? Is there anything we can do about this? And I have said for years, my answer to that question is, I need everybody that watches this show, everybody that believes what I believe, that agrees with what I say, I need you to get involved in politics. And by that, I don't mean vote. I mean, you have to join up with your college Republicans. You have to join up with your young Republicans, your Turning Point. You have to volunteer on campaigns. And when the person you're working for wins their election, you need to work in their congressional office. You need to work in this administration. You need to get an internship. You need to work at a think tank. And if you're serious and you dedicate yourself to doing this and build a resume and build a career, you can be very useful for our cause. And it won't take as much time as you think. In not a very long time, the institutions will soon reflect our politics if everybody is doing this. If millions of people are seeing these clips and a small fraction are doing this, and we are the most energized and the most enthusiastic, literally, if we show up, it's ours. And they know that. The pro-Israel lobby knows that. And what's very interesting now is how the hammer is coming down on the Heritage Foundation. So Tucker Carlson interviewed me. They want Tucker Carlson canceled. The Heritage Foundation, the premier think tank in the conservative movement, defended Tucker. And they said, we will not cancel him. And they really didn't like that. Israel lobby, more than they hated what Tucker was doing, they really hated what Heritage Foundation said. And here's why. Because Heritage Foundation is an institution. It's not a personality. It's an institution. Anybody can watch Tucker's show. And most people that watch Tucker's show have regular jobs. But if an institution says, Tucker Carlson fans welcome, then that means that that institution becomes a safe harbor and a springboard for people that are sympathetic to me and Tucker. At this point, what's the difference? It's a distinction without a difference. People that are sympathetic to us will go and they will work there as interns, as employees, as communications people, whatever. And they'll get a resume, they'll get a job, and then they'll go and work in other places. They'll work in the Trump administration, they'll work in Congress, they'll work in policy positions. And all of a sudden, you have people that agree with Tucker and agree with me, or agree with Tucker's decision to talk to me, working in the corridors of power. And who knows, in 10 or 20 years, maybe at the highest levels. And that's what they really don't like. So because the Heritage Foundation president was sympathetic to Tucker after the interview, now they're really putting the screws in him and this organization. And the news on this front is that it is the National Coalition for Combating Anti-Semitism. I think I have the acronym right. I had to read it because it's so convoluted. The National Coalition for Combating Anti-Semitism, which partners with Heritage, has released a list of demands. And they're telling Heritage that if this think tank does not comply with their demands, that they're going to roll up the organization. They're going to revoke their partnership with Heritage, and this is going to greenlight Heritage. The whole thing might come crumbling down. The whole institution might collapse. The people that work there might be blacklisted. Their partnerships and coordination with members of Congress and the Republican Party might be in jeopardy. Heritage as an institution might be decertified. They might lose their verification, their legitimacy, their credential, their accreditation, let's say, in the conservative movement. And the demands are as follows. They want to root out anybody that is considered a groyper working in the organization. Anybody that's sympathetic, anybody that is considered Israel critical or anti-Semitic or whatever. They want to appoint a Generation Z ambassador for Heritage, an analog to me, but who is pro-Israel, that's going to do outreach to the Zoomers. They want to hold a weekly Shabbat dinner. A weekly Shabbat dinner at Heritage designed to be a filter to see who shows up, who doesn't show up, to filter out anyone that isn't on board with Israel. It's an institutional battle. At the same time that this came out, Ross Douthat at the New York Times published an editorial, an opinion piece, and he said, the battle to censor Nick Fuentes is over. He said, but the real next step in the fight is to fire anybody that likes his show working in conservative politics. This is advanced. This is the next stage. Congratulations, guys. We have penetrated the outer wall. The outer wall has crumbled. As the Atlantic said, the firewall has crumbled. We have broken through the gates. Groyper legionaries have stormed the first wall. And now the pro-Israel side, the conservatives, have retreated behind the next layer, behind the second wall in their concentric circles, in their tiered city. We did it. We won the argument. We beat censorship. We beat cancel culture. Our ideas are mainstream. We won the debate. We won the hearts and minds of millions of young men, and they're everywhere. 30 to 40% of the White House are groypers. You lost. Will Chamberlain, Shapiro, Mark Levin, you lost. You lost the conversation. We won. And now we're taking it to the next level. We graduated. Congratulations, everybody. We won. And we have now graduated to phase 2. Phase 1, I had to be the human battering ram and blow the door open with the flashbangs and everything. I had to entry so that everybody else can come in. I had to break the taboo. I had to break the cancel culture, the censorship. I had to break the spell that you could still be popular being called an anti-Semite, a bigot, a Nazi. And I had to do what I had to do to achieve that. We had to make the arguments, persuade everybody. We did that. We accomplished that. Now what? I'll tell you now what. What happens next? Now that we're inside the building, now we got to lock this shit down. Okay, we're in. Groypers have broken through the front lines. We've exploited the gaps. We've infiltrated. We've penetrated. What do we do now? I'll tell you what we do. Get those positions. We are now jockeying for the most important positions everywhere where it counts. That's the name of the game. People say where, what, everywhere where it counts. So those positions at UCLA, those limited numbers of seats, their student body, that's where it counts. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, George Mason, George Washington, UVA universities, Georgetown, that's where it counts. College Republicans, Young Republicans, Turning Point USA, that's where it counts. You need to get into these institutions, get leadership positions. Where else? Political campaigns, state and local campaigns, national campaigns, statewide campaigns. You want to be on the winning team. When they win the election, you get in office. You're either on the campaign side, the political side, or you're in the congressional side. You're on the team. But we need to get in Congress. We need to get in, let's say, law school, the Federalist Society. We need to get in the courts. These are the positions we're fighting for. And in order to do that, you need to hide your power level. Don't be a streamer. We've got enough of those. I got it covered. I'm the best in the world at what I do. We don't need another streamer. Don't be online telling everybody your edgiest take. We did edgelording. It's not even that funny anymore because comedy was legalized. It's not even that funny anymore. Save your firepower. Don't go telling everybody how based you are in group chats, on Twitter. Don't go wearing the merch around. Your job is to be a spy. This is the Groyper Intelligence Agency. This is the GIA. Don't tell anybody. You're a double agent. You're a super spy. You can't tell anybody your power level. Nobody, not even your girlfriend, especially not your girlfriend, not your mother, not your parents. You can't tell anybody. And I would be guarded even around those that say they're Groypers because there might be double agents, triple agents. But that's the next step. And you want to know why that's the next step? Because that is where they're fortifying the position. They're admitting, we lost the battle. Everyone likes Nick Fuentes. Everyone's anti-Semitic. What do we do now? They said, we got to make sure we fire them and we prevent them from taking over the institutions. That's why we have to subvert them. We have to get in there. And you can do it in the private sector too. The public sector, the private sector, academia. People say, what should I do? Where should I do it? Think about the institutions that Jews control. If they control it, that's where you want to go. Finance, academia, government, media, arguably maybe Hollywood, banking. That's where you want to be. In the power cities, LA, New York, Austin, DC. These are the places we want to be. Okay. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but we're going to talk all about that. We're going to get into that conversation. I am getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we're going to talk all about that tonight too. The Groyper War continues. The Groyper War rolls on. This is only the beginning. This is just the beginning. You haven't seen anything yet. I promise you. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to smash the follow button on Rumble, smash the like button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. Get your merch. We have our brand new Wang Half shirt, Fuentes.store. Don't wear this in public if you're trying to infiltrate, because then they'll know. If you're working for Heritage Foundation, don't wear this shirt at the Christmas party or the Shabbat dinner, because then they'll know. Everybody else, wear the shit out of it, okay? Fuentes.store, that's what we are, dude. White ass niggas go. Mark Levin does not stand a chance. against even one Wang half. That's who we are. That's our DNA. The hats are there as well. Like I said, Fuentes.store. Same rule applies. Be careful where you wear it if you have political aspirations. AmericaFirst.plus to subscribe to be an America First Plus member. Get access to the archive of the show, $15 a month. Group chat with me, $100 a month. And I'm in there and I'm hanging out and you can talk to me and everything. That's AmericaFirst.plus. Okay, we're going to dive in. We're going to get into the show. Like I said, tonight we're going to continue our coverage of the fallout from the Tucker Carlson interview. We'll talk about that first, then we'll get to Zohran Mamdani because it's a good segue, I think, later. And so first, I want to talk a little bit about the news. What's actually new here? So, of course, yesterday we talked a little bit about this. We had the Tucker interview last Monday. Last Thursday, the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, defended Tucker. Big mistake. Because the rules still apply. It is still a total blanket ban on criticism of Israel. And my appearance on Tucker, I think, made some of the negligence of the Israel lobby. I think it made them snap shut again, and all the rules came crashing back down on Kevin Roberts' unsuspecting head. And so we covered this a little bit last night. The Israel lobby is absolutely furious because the Heritage Foundation is maybe the most important conservative think tank in America. It is like the flagship, the standard bearer of Reagan conservatism. Heritage Foundation is synonymous with movement conservatism. Cannot be overstated how important this think tank is. And just so you guys understand, because I assume you know, but maybe you don't. What is a think tank? Maybe it's obvious. Maybe you're embarrassed to ask. These think tanks, these nonprofits, this is actually a major seat of the power in politics because it is these nonprofits that raise their money from billionaires and from mailing lists that go back 40 years from conservative voters. It is these think tanks which have a lot of money. They have this quasi-accreditation ability. It is these think tanks which are actually creating the intellectual backbone and the policy for the Republican Party. Where do the Republicans get their ideas? Where do they get their talking points? The congressmen, the senators, where do they get the laws? When Fox News or some other conservative media organ, when they get their studies, where do they get them? The experts, the expert testimony, the technocrats, the experts that run our society, where do they come from? They come from the think tanks. So the think tanks, which are all headquartered in D.C. or thereabouts, this is a major part of what you would call movement conservatism and the Republican Party. What Curtis Yarvin would call the cathedral. These are the priests of the Republican cathedral, which are defining the dogma and the doctrine of what it is to be a Republican. And the think tanks are captured by the billionaires because the think tanks are funded and paid for by the large contributions of the donor class, the special interests. They pour all this money in, and the think tanks then churn out the ideas, the policies, the research, expert testimony, and that goes in the congressional hearings, and it goes into the legislative directors in Congress, and it goes into the White House, the bureaucracy. Very important part of politics. It is also a facility which is supposed to churn out dutiful apparatchiks, party men for the GOP. People come into the think tanks as college Republicans, maybe they're teenagers, 20-somethings, college-aged. They're young, they're looking for employment. They get a little stipend, they get a little salary, they get a fellowship, they get a grant, something like that. That's how they get their start. And so something like Heritage is churning out Brylan Hollyhans, basically. That's what it is. It's a mill for Brylan Hollyhans and Charlie Kirks, these types of people. And they go out and they are the evangelists of the conservative doctrine. It's the brain of the conservative movement. I'm telling you this so you understand the significance. The president of Heritage has all this credibility, all this legitimacy. It has a lot of intellectual heft and weight in the conservative movement. What they say is sort of like gospel for the Republican conference in the U.S. Congress. It's a big deal. The president of Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, came out last week confidently, you could almost say defiantly, defiant against the Israel lobby berserkers. He came out and said, Tucker is my friend. He is inside the big tent. We're not disavowing him. He said, and by the way, we're allowed to criticize Israel. We don't have to support them. We're America first. We're Christ first. We support free speech, and we should debate Nick Fuentes' ideas. Maybe now you're starting to understand what a big deal that is. Because like I said, if that guy is saying that, if the head honcho at Heritage is saying this, what this signifies is that Heritage, the accreditation institution, the brain, the priestly class that promulgates the Republican dogma, if that institution says that Groyperism is up for debate, it's on the table, it's not canceled, we should talk about the ideas, and we should defend the people that defend the Groypers or talk to the Groypers. It signifies that, one, that place is a safe harbor, as I said before. So a Groyper could go to work at Heritage and maybe feel welcome and comfortable, and he won't be fired. And you might have a Groyper at Heritage who is going to be writing a policy paper about, who knows, foreign policy, education, immigration. They might be considered like an expert, and maybe they'll go on to be a legislative director for a senator. And they might be writing laws for the U.S. government. It's conceivable. If the president of Heritage says Tucker is in the big tent, then that means that Tucker and Nick Fuentes sympathizers are allowed to be employed at Heritage. And thus, they might be in the position to determine the dogma. They can write the doctrine. Big problem. But more than that, it signifies across the board that this is now inside the institutions. The Israel lobby can no longer pretend that this is an internet show, that this is happening outside of the Capitol. This is happening in the hinterlands. This is happening in the hills. And maybe the cranks and the lunatics and the crazy mobs of peasants, maybe they like Tucker's show. Who cares? Because inside the walls, inside the ivory tower, inside the gated community, the cathedral, we're still safe inside. We still know that Tucker is anti-Semitic. We still know that Nick Fuentes is evil. If somebody inside the city walls says, we're sympathetic to Tucker, then it signals that you've got an institutional impact. That maybe Tucker and my ideas might be inside the think tanks, might be inside Congress, might be inside Washington, D.C. It's in the government. It's in the middle of the political system. That's what they can't allow. This is why this is such a big deal for them. And that's why the hammer came down so swiftly on Heritage Foundation. And so Thursday, the guy comes out proudly and says, we're never going to back down and we will never disavow Tucker. By Friday morning, the following day, he issues this long statement condemning me and calling me a rapist and an anti-Semite and a Hitler worshiper and a Stalin apologist, whatever the fuck that even means, and all the rest of it. And it gets better. Yesterday, he goes to Hillsdale and gives a speech. And he says, our biggest mission is fighting anti-Semitism. And I made a big mistake because I forgot to tell everybody that. Today, This is our news for the night. Get a load of this. The National Coalition for Combating Anti-Semitism, which is a partner with the Heritage Foundation, releases a list of demands. And they say that if the Heritage Foundation does not comply with their list of demands, then they will be forced to revoke their partnership. And that might spell the end of the Heritage Foundation. I'll read you their letter. This is what they say. So this is a tweet from Audrey Fahlberg. She writes, here is an email that the co-chairs of the Heritage Foundation's Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism sent to their members on their new demands for Kevin Roberts in the wake of Heritage, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes fallout. This comes as task force members continue to resign in protest of their alliance with Tucker Carlson. The letter says, if we are not able to come to an agreement soon, the relationship between Heritage Foundation and the task force will be irrevocably harmed, says the letter according to National Review Online. National Review published the letter. There they are again. I'll read to you. This is what the letter says. Get a look. So this is the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism. This is what they write to Heritage, specifically to its president, Kevin Roberts. These are their demands. They write, NT-FCA members, thank you to your patience with us as we seek to find a path forward together with the Heritage Foundation. The following is an email based on your contributions and feedback. We appreciate all of you for your steadfast contribution to ensuring the conservative movement remains a home for all those who stand against anti-Semitism. Dear Kevin, we appreciate that you took the time to speak with us. Our communication with NTFCA members was to get more time to come to some agreement on how we can move forward together. In that spirit, we offer the following recommendations. Buckle up. These are their demands. Number one, removing the video that created the firestorm. There are 100 million Christians in the United States that found Tucker's comments deeply offensive when he called Christian Zionism a heresy and a mind virus. Many of us on the task force are among those who believed you called us part of a venomous coalition and questioned our loyalty to the United States. It makes collaboration with Heritage difficult for our members. So one, delete the video. Two, an apology to those Christians and Jews who are steadfast members of the conservative movement and believe that Israel has a special role to play biblically and politically. Based on years of working relationships, we know that many of your top foreign policy staff at Heritage share this view and could help you craft such a statement. The foreign policy team at Heritage will help you write it. Why? Because the people drafting the foreign policy for Heritage Foundation are all pro-Israel Jews. Isn't that a conflict of interest? That Heritage Foundation, a wide-ranging think tank, its foreign policy division is apparently controlled by pro-Israel loyalists? So when the conservative think tank writes its foreign policy for the United States, the global empire, it's controlled by pro-Israel people. They're going to help craft the apology to Jews and Christians. That's number two. So one, delete your video. Two, apologize. Three, condemnation of any content that Tucker Carlson has ever hosted or statements he has made without calling for his cancellation, but an acknowledgement that you and Tucker have disagreements and you disagree with and condemn his anti-Semitic content, then we will consider the matter closed. So we don't want you to cancel him. We just want you to condemn him and all of his anti-Semitic content and all the things you disagree with him on. Delete your video, apologize, condemn your friend. Number four, it is clear there is an internal battle within the conservative movement over who is to be included. The division between no enemies to our right versus a moral conservatism demands our attention. This is the new dialectic they're creating. a conference that provides some guidance to the movement on how best to keep unity without needing to include the worst among us. So 4, they want to put on a workshop of who's a Jew-hating anti-Semite and who's a moral conservative. They want Heritage to put on a conference to tell everybody, how do you know you're dealing with a groyper that must be banished forever? And how do you sniff out groypers? They're like the Gestapo. They want a conference instructing conservatives, this is how you can tell you're dealing with a groyper. How to keep unity without including the worst among us. Number 5, you pointed out repeatedly that we face a challenge in reaching disenfranchised young men caught in the spell of Nick Fuentes and others. It's a spell. Everyone really desperately wants a war with Iran. I just cast a spell on you to convince you everybody loves genocide, killing children, war in the Middle East. We love being humiliated ritualistically. We love our politicians kissing the wall. It's just that I'm cynically manipulating you. Look, a down on his luck young white man. He's mad because he doesn't have a job. I'm going to convince him that war with Iran is a bad idea. If he had a job, he would never agree with this. So number 5, he says, I'll continue. You pointed out repeatedly, we face a challenge in reaching disenfranchised young men caught in the spell of Nick Fuentes. To address this issue specifically, we recommend hiring a visiting fellow, one who shares mainstream views on Israel, Jews, and Christian Zionism, who could identify strategies and tools to win Gen Z and beyond. So demand number 5, they want to hire a Generation Z whisperer. How do we get Generation Z to fall in love with Israel again? Let's get Brylan Hollyhand. Number 6, and this is the best one. The task force members would like to host Shabbat dinners with the interns and junior staff of Heritage in partnership with Heritage to host conversations on Judaism and the Judeo-Christian tradition. They want to... So their 6th and final demand. They want to host for those that don't know, Shabbat, that's the Sabbath. That's the Jewish Sabbath where they meet for dinner on Saturday night. All the Jews meet for dinner on Saturday night to observe the Sabbath. So they're saying the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism will host a Shabbat dinner, and they're inviting all of the young staff members at Heritage to attend to lecture them about Judaism and Judeo-Christianity. Welcome to Shabbat. We'd like to talk to you about Judaism. We'd like to talk to you about Israel. So they can literally sniff out groypers. That's the point of it. They're bringing all the junior staff members there simultaneously to indoctrinate them, but also to vet them. Literally, we want to create a Jewish Sanhedrin and invite all the staff members there just to check them out. And that's their final demand. The letter closes. It says, we appreciate your attention to this matter. If we are not able to come to an agreement soon, the relationship between Heritage and the task force will be irrevocably harmed. So in other words, if you don't agree to all these things, we're cutting you out and then you're done. Heritage will lose all its donors. Its board members will resign. There will be a mutiny. Kevin Roberts will be fired and someone else will replace him, and they will agree to all these demands. Delete the video, apologize, condemn Tucker, host a conference on why groypers suck, hire a Generation Z ambassador to identify strategies to make Zoomers love Israel, and then they want to host a Shabbat dinner to vet all the young staff members and make sure they love Jews in Israel. Those are their demands. Now, understand the broader context here. What else is going on? Class, what else has been going on in the past couple of months? Gavin Wax, Jewish Zionist from the Zionist Organization of America, was working at the State Department. He still is. He sent those screenshots from a group chat to Politico of a dozen young Republicans making Jewish jokes, Holocaust jokes, racist jokes. He got them all fired. He got them all doxxed, canceled. They all lost their jobs. They're all unemployable. And what was the idea behind that? One, it raised the red flag and it said, we got a problem. All of the young Republicans, college Republicans, all the interns and staff members are all groypers. They make groyper jokes. They have groyper opinions. They're very edgy. They're very far right. We've got a problem. We need to reinforce cancel culture. What happened a week later? Paul Ingrassia. Paul Ingrassia is friends with Andrew Tate. He defended me in the past. He was nominated to be in the office of the Inspector General, a very important watchdog position in the Trump government. Right before his confirmation hearing, his group chat was leaked too. They made up some fake sex scandal about him. It's not even a sex scandal. It's just like they said he slept in the same room as a woman. Is it a crime to be straight in the GOP? I guess it is. And then they leaked his group chat where he made some racist jokes. And they canceled his confirmation hearing. He went back to his previous position. It's the same story. Then after the Tucker interview breaks, you've got a friend of J.D. Vance telling the New York Times that 30 to 40% of White House personnel and congressional staff are groypers. Now this. So very clearly, they are concerned. When they see my show, they're not terribly alarmed by the show by itself. I've been doing the show for 10 years, and they tried to cancel the show, censor the show, ban the show. And when the show was small, wasn't a big problem. But now the show is very big. And now I'm like a celebrity. And I don't say that for my own aggrandizement. That's just a description. I go outside and I get recognized everywhere I go. And it's all young guys. All the young guys high-fiving me, keep talking about the Jews. I hear that all the time from like normal people. High fives, can I get a picture? Kids in like middle school, kids in high school, kids in college, they're with me. They believe it. And if they believe it in the streets here and in the streets of DC, they believe it at Harvard. There are groypers at Harvard. There are groypers at Stanford. There are groypers at UCLA. There are groypers at Princeton, Georgetown, George Mason, George Washington University, UVA. They're everywhere. We're doing it. Infiltration, it's not a pipe dream. It's not talk. It's happening. We did it. We're doing it. It's happening right now. They're becoming aware of this. And this is what they're afraid of. Some guy talking and bitching and yelling about your political opinions, who cares? Some guy talking and bitching to an audience of boomers, who cares? An audience of freaks, who cares? But a guy with a supermassive audience that is reaching young men, young, intelligent men from normal backgrounds in college and in politics, that's a problem for them. Now they're worried. They don't want people to have ideas, but they especially don't want the young men to have ideas. Because the young, precocious men, these are the ones that are going to be getting into the highly selective schools. They're the ones that are going to go to work in the think tanks, the internships, the admin. And then those people are just going to keep climbing up the ladder, one rung at a time. And one day, they're going to be the legislative director. They're going to be the comms director. They're going to be the undersecretary, the chief of staff. And they're going to be carrying with them all these ideas, all the politics, and you're not going to necessarily know who they are. It's going to be hard to tell, and maybe they'll conceal it. They're not going to be able to know, and that's what they don't want. Because you understand about politics, It's not just about the raw numbers. It's about where the numbers are. It's about the demographic. It's not about, can we get 51% of the general public to vote in an election? It's not about that. It's about, can we get enough very elite human capital young guys into one city, the city where all the decisions are made? And can they schmooze and charm and climb their way up the ladder in a handful of institutions? Because that will have disproportionate impact on policy. That's the alarm. So this has been a long time coming. Even 6 years ago during the original Groyper War, and I'll enlighten for those that don't know, my feud with Charlie Kirk started with Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA was firing anybody that liked my show in 2019. 6 years ago. I never had a problem with Charlie Kirk until all of a sudden he started firing anybody that liked my show for the same reason. This is the same battle. Because back then they identified the same problem. They said we can't have Groypers in Turning Point because if we have Groypers in Turning Point, then we're going to have Groypers in Congress. And if we have Groypers in Congress, we have a problem. So in 2019, they started firing Groypers. That's when we went to the Q&A events and we started pushing Charlie. You're not Christian enough. You're not conservative enough. You're not America First enough. And Charlie had to change his positions because he was losing the young male demographic. And then shortly after that, I got banned on YouTube because they realized what was happening. Well, now we're back. My show is back. I'm not censored anymore. Increasingly, I'm no longer canceled. And the Groypers have broken through the walls. And that's why now the National Coalition or the National Task Force on Fighting Anti-Semitism, their demands are about filtering Groypers. Identify Groypers, fire Groypers. Bring the staff members to Shabbat so they could be vetted by the Jews. Indoctrinate them. Find strategies to combat and win the battle in the hearts and minds of the youth because they don't want them at Heritage. Now, this was their list of demands for Heritage Foundation, but I also want to read to you an article in the New York Times today echoing this by Ross Douthat. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. He said the same thing. So this is an article from the New York Times published this evening. It says, what conservatives should do about Nick Fuentes. Very on the nose, very explicit. What conservatives should do about Nick Fuentes. He writes, it's been about 7 months since I last wrote about how debates over Israel and anti-Semitism are dividing the American right. Once again, we are debating the programming choices of prominent podcasters. He said, how do you gatekeep a tendency, anti-Israel sentiment sliding down the slippery slope to Fuentes' attacks on world Jewry that's clearly gaining prominence within the populist ecosystem? Are the choices of prominent figures central to the drama? Is the right looking for a new William F. Buckley Jr., who once policed the paranoid and anti-Semitic boundaries of the conservative movement? Is it already too late to prevent a Groyper future? This is the important part. I think it's clearly too late to have a future where figures like Fuentes are banished or marginalized. You lost. You tried it. And you lost. You tried to banish me. You tried to marginalize me. You tried to gaslight me, and you lost. I'm too good. I'm too resilient. I'm too strong, too stubborn, too mentally tough. I defeated you. We broke the first wall. So he's conceding on that. He says it's too late. We lost. He's not marginalized. He's too popular. The masses love him. He's the people's champion. He says the digital transformation of politics, the breakdown of the Cold War, the post-Cold War consensus, the politics of youthful alienation are all much more powerful than gatekeeping. You're wrong. I'm more powerful than gatekeeping. He says any statement of conservative principles, any attempt to read a set of personalities or ideas out of the debate, that doesn't mean the choices of prominent people cease to matter. But they are just individual moves in an open-end chess game where the goal is to persistently outmaneuver the internal enemy, not to find the one perfect move that checkmates them forever. He says the goal is to persistently outmaneuver the internal enemy. Internal to what? Politics. He says, so let's consider what successful anti-Semitic maneuvers might look like. First, while the right's elites and would-be leaders can't control the information ecosystem, they can exert real control over the institutions. Who gets hired and who gets fired? Who gets promoted and who gets sidelined? More generally, what kind of culture obtains inside think tanks and congressional offices and political campaigns? They're giving the game away. I told you so. He said, look, we lost the information battle. We can't ban him on Instagram. His clips are everywhere. We can't ban him on Rumble and Twitter. We are being hanged by our own standard of free speech. We fought for free speech. Now we got it. Now Nick Fuentes' ideas have triumphed in the information space. He said, we can't control that. It's too big. It's too broad. So we're going to retreat to the next layer. He said, we can control the institutions, hiring and firing, sidelining and promoting. Where? Think tanks, congressional offices, political campaigns. He says, in the late 2010s, I watched generational conflict play out in disastrous ways in liberal and left-leaning institutions where the younger guard was increasingly radicalized and the older guard moved rapidly from patronizing encouragement to besieged submission, from welcoming radical tendencies to being paralyzed by fear of junior employees whom they themselves had elevated and in theory could still discipline or fire. The radical left took over the Democrat Party. Nancy Pelosi has to bend the knee to AOC in certain instances. Zohran Mamdani defeats Andrew Cuomo. He said, in the left, the radical, bombastic, enthusiastic young people captured the institutions. Because initially, the establishment on the left was, let's say, they were caught with their pants down. They didn't know that they had let the fox in the henhouse. They let in a dragon. He said he witnessed that happen on the left. He writes, whatever share of Capitol Hill interns or think tank employees are actually Fuentes sympathizers, this is the scenario the institutional right needs to avoid right now, preventing radicalized junior staffers from steamrolling or puppeteering nominal superiors, in-name-only superiors. Music to my ears. Delicious. I'll have another course, please. Another one of these, another round. I love it. Succulent, scrumptious, delicious. And it's delicious because it's already happening. It's already happening. Past tense, it happened. Steamrolling nominal superiors, puppeteering nominal superiors. We're everywhere. He says, it's too late to control information. Let's try to gatekeep the institutions. You've only caught on far too late. Look at what happened the other week. Gavin Wags blew up a group chat. You throw a rock, you're going to hit 30 groypers in Washington, D.C. You throw a rock in Washington, D.C., it's going to bounce off the heads of 30 groypers. What are you talking about? It's not too late for the institutions. Oh, if only you knew. He writes, but this isn't just a matter of imposing discipline. The older generation has to understand where the radical ideas are coming from. You aren't going to out-debate Fuentes himself. That's not the business he's in, but you still want to understand the chain of ideas that draws young right-wingers toward anti-Semitism and offer adult wisdom that's responsive to its pull. He says you need a different set of arguments to interrupt the regress, and arguments need to be tailored to actual events and general theories. He says conservatives who want to stop the slide to anti-Semitism need to create a zone where normal criticism of Israeli strategy is possible and then distinguish it from normal debates from paranoid and anti-Semitic criticism. You don't want to tell young right-wingers that having doubts about the Israel-Hamas war is all or nothing, and there's no room for anti-Semitism in the conservative movement, and no room for criticism of U.S. support of whatever Israel is doing. Now, this is the next part. He's saying we need to give some slack. We need to let conservatives on a longer leash. We need to distinguish between criticism of Israeli policy and the slippery slope towards real anti-Semitism. He said we can tolerate criticism of Israeli policy. We can't tolerate the latter. I've been trying to tell you this forever, and people told me it was convoluted. People said, why would you criticize Tucker when he's 100% on our side? And I would tell people, he doesn't agree with us 100%. Why? Because, and listen, I like Tucker. I do consider Tucker a fellow traveler, but there are disagreements here. And the disagreement that me and Tucker discussed on his show is this. Tucker said it's about policy. It's about Israeli policy. It's about Netanyahu and the neocons. It's not about Jews, Judaism, organized Jewry. It's not about that. And I said, well, of course it is about that. And it's obvious why. And let me just be very clear about this first. Then I'll elaborate on the distinction. What's my real position? This is my real, completely defensible position. Netanyahu and Israel have no power over the United States that is not given to them by American Jewish oligarchs. Let me say that again. Netanyahu and his Likud party and the far right in Israel and the secular government of Israel, they would have no power over the United States if it were not for their American Jewish sympathizers in our oligarchy. What do I mean by that? You had pro-Palestine hashtags go viral on TikTok. TikTok was headquartered in China. Nothing they could do about that. What could Israel do about that? TikTok, a company headquartered in Beijing, had pro-Palestine hashtags go viral, and Israel is being criticized too much. What could Israel do about that? Nothing. But America could do a lot about that. Why? Because America used its leverage in Chinese trade negotiations as China's largest trading partner to make TikTok part of a broader bilateral deal. In other words, the United States as an empire used its vast markets and its all-important trade relationship with China to put TikTok on the table of a huge deal concerning everything, rare earths and chips and aluminum and steel and soybeans and all those things. TikTok was a part of that deal. And the White House knew that TikTok as a business could not afford to lose its U.S. market because the U.S. market is big. The Israeli market, not so much. Israel doesn't have leverage like that with China. The United States does. Israel doesn't have leverage like that with TikTok. The United States does. So an American regime clawed TikTok under American control using the weight of the United States at the behest of who? Well, who passed the law banning TikTok? The U.S. Congress did last year, and they did it at the behest of the Republican Jewish Coalition, the North American Jewish Federation. Those are the groups that lobbied for it, that welcomed it, that took credit for it, and celebrated it. And it was in the aftermath of October 7th that the law was passed. And then the Trump administration, which was swept into office by Jewish billionaires like Jeffrey Yost, he was a single-issue voter on this issue, and Bill Ackman and Jacob Hellberg and others, they wanted it too. So American Jews used their citizenship, which allowed them to contribute money to super PACs and campaigns to increase their leverage over the U.S. government, to use America's leverage over China to get TikTok to benefit Israel. And in the end, which is the American company that is actually going to run TikTok? Oracle, owned by Larry Ellison, a secular Jew, not even a neocon, but the number one private beneficiary or benefactor of the Israeli Defense Forces. Larry Ellison's a friend of Netanyahu, an ally of Israel, a benefactor of the IDF. He runs TikTok now, and he's now going to work for Netanyahu. It's part of his push. Same way that his son, David Ellison, bought CBS and made Barry Weiss its president. And Netanyahu came to the United States, came to New York, and said this is part of their strategy to fight Iran. And that is to win back the hearts and minds of the American public to support Israel's war. Now, you've heard all this before. You've heard me explain that. Why do I relitigate it here? To demonstrate that it ain't just about Israel. It's not about Netanyahu. For those that say this is about the secular government of Israel, it's about Netanyahu, it's all about him. He has no power. American Jewish billionaires have power. Why? Because this is the biggest, richest country. If you're at the top of this country, you're at the top of the world. And our open, tolerant system is penetrated by foreign operatives. Our universities, which are the best in the world, our market, which is the richest and biggest in the world, our companies, our capital markets, which are the biggest and richest in the world, they're wide open for allies of Israel to ascend. An ally of Israel with American citizenship, born in America, but with affinity for Israel, by virtue of them being Jewish, they could go to Harvard, go to law school, start a big company, get rich, amass a $300 billion fortune, influence the U.S. government to get TikTok, and run it on behalf of Israel. It unlocks unlimited power. That's the issue. The issue is the dual loyalty. And Israel is a part of it, but it's not the whole thing. The whole thing is called Jewry. It's the Jews in America and the Jews in Israel. That's where all the Jews live. The vast majority of the Jews in the world live in the United States and Israel. And there are still some in Europe, and there's still some elsewhere. But the vast majority of Jews live in America and Israel. More Jews live in New York than in any other city. I believe more Jews live in America than live in Israel. Okay? So when people say Israel, 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 no, it is about the global Jewish community that is mostly headquartered in the United States, specifically LA, South Florida, and New York, and their allies in Israel. That's the power matrix. And there's some key alliances in Europe. There's some key allies in London and Paris and Rome, and there's some key allies elsewhere like Millet and the rest of it. But those are the two loci of power, of Jewish power. That's the reality. That's real. And what the New York Times is saying, and what Tucker says actually also, and others too, they say we have to distinguish between people that criticize Israeli policy and those that slide into anti-Semitism when they talk about world Jewry. Here's what he says. He says, conservatives who want to stop the slide to anti-Semitism must create a zone where normal criticism of Israeli strategy is possible. It's not about Israeli strategy. It's about American sovereignty. You think I really give a shit about Israel's strategy in a vacuum? I don't really. Israel is using evil tactics. It's wicked. It's immoral. I condemn it. But the problem is not that in itself. The problem is that we're enabling it, we're paying for it, and we're doing that because our government is captured. And our government is captured by the money power. And the Jews have access to the money power because they have citizenship here, which allows them to take advantage of our system, even though they're loyal to a foreign country. This is a special arrangement, and this arrangement is upheld by the constellation of Jewish organizations which protect this. What do I mean by that? If a Chinese person became a $300 billion tech mogul and he was giving money to the People's Liberation Army, or whatever it is in China, do you think that would stand? Like, think about this. Larry Ellison is worth $300 billion. He gives millions of dollars to the IDF. He's Jewish. Israel's the Jewish state. He runs Oracle, which is critical to U.S. national security. He now runs TikTok, which is media in the United States. Imagine if he were Chinese. Imagine if he were ethnically Chinese. He was giving money to the PLA. He was giving money to the People's Liberation Navy of the Chinese Communist Party, and he had those positions in America. Would anyone tolerate that? You would say this guy's a Chinese spy. This guy's a dual loyalist. He should be imprisoned. He should be deported. He should have his assets taken. But what's the difference? In America, you have the ADL. If somebody says Larry Ellison is a dual loyalist, in comes the ADL that says you're anti-Semitic and you're fired for thinking that. And you have the media, which will run cover. The media, which is run by whom? Anybody? Rupert Murdoch, friend of Netanyahu, like Larry Ellison. CNN, run by Zucker, Jewish. Jake Tapper, Wolf Blitzer. Hello. CBS, now run by Barry Weiss. Who's the watchdog that's going to call this out? You understand the game here? And so the ADL, the Jewish billionaires, Israel, this is what you would call organized Jewry. They are like a transnational game. They have organs performing different functions that create and protect the racket. So he says this is about Israeli strategy. No, it's not about Israeli strategy. This got nothing to do with Israeli strategy. Miriam Adelson, taking advantage of Citizens United and contributing $100 million in every cycle, that's got nothing to do with Israeli strategy. She takes advantage of the system, which makes America support the moral hazard, the blank check that Israel gets that enables them to do these things. They write the check and we cash it because their guys, their billionaires here are bribing our politicians. They're using the money to rig the system. The fortunes they've amassed with gambling, with pornography. OnlyFans supports Israel. Miriam Adelson is a gambling mogul, a casino mogul. Okay? They make money in these gangster trades, porn, gambling, speculative financial stuff. They use their fortunes in America to bribe the government to help them. He says, we have to create a zone where normal criticism of Israeli strategy is possible and distinguish it from paranoid, anti-Semitic criticism. You don't want to tell young right-wingers having doubts about Israel and Hamas that it's all or nothing, that there's no room for anti-Semitism and no room for criticizing U.S. support for whatever the Israeli government is doing. Think about all this equivocating. We're going to let you criticize U.S. support for anything the Israeli government is doing. And by the way, this is what many of these mainstream people are saying. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, I appreciated what she said about me. I'm open to a truce with her. I don't hate her. Honest to God, it's not personal for me. I appreciated what she said about me on The View. But here's some of my criticism. Marjorie Greene, whenever she tweets about Israel, she says, the secular government of Israel that has nothing to do with Jews. What are you talking about? That's not the issue at hand. And I get why she might need to hedge. I get why she might need to balance the rhetoric. But we, as the immovable standard of America First, I tell the truth. I don't play games. I don't set plays. I'm not a chess player. I'm not playing a rhetorical game. I'm not pulling my punches for tactics. I'm here to tell you the real truth. That's not true. So what's my point? I'm getting maybe a little bit off course here. This is from the New York Times. This is from the National Task Force on Combating Anti-Semitism. They say, how do we stop the Groypers? Two things. One, gatekeeping the institutions. Not the conversation, but the institutions. Hire and fire, promote and sideline, the think tanks, the congressional office, the campaigns. We have to keep them out of the halls of power. That's number one. Number two, they say we actually have to move the Overton window to the right. We have to allow some criticism of Israel in order to prevent people from embracing the full criticism. That's the definition of a limited hangout, by the way. We're going to let them criticize Israel's conduct in the war so that they don't follow it to its logical conclusion, which is Why is Israel allowed to prosecute this war? Oh, because we're paying for it and we're defending them. Why are we doing that? Because we're being bribed. Why are we doing that? Because Jewish American billionaires are loyal to Israel. Why? Because they're part of an ethno-religion. They believe they're God's chosen. They're congenitally paranoid and hysterical. They're afraid of another Holocaust. And they probably shouldn't have power over us. Don't follow it to its logical conclusion. Stop here and go no further. It's an ideological form of gatekeeping. This is their counterattack. Now, here's the last thing we're going to talk about. Ben Shapiro today did another show about me. Now, what have I said about J.D. Vance? I said that our job is to squeeze J.D. Vance and whoever the Republican nominee will be. Our job in the 2028 election, in order to see all of this through, we want a seat at the table. We want the next Republican government to be filled with groypers. We want the next Republican government not to support Israel. But of course, there's going to be a lot of pressure in the other direction. The Jewish money is going to be flowing. AIPAC, Adelson, Ackman, McGuire, all that money is going to be pouring in 2028 to make sure that every Republican candidate supports Israel. Because they know they have a problem here. And I said it's our job to meet them on the other side. You want to put the money out? You're going to try to bribe the politicians to support Israel? We'll pressure the politicians not to. How? We're going to show up to their events. We're going to make it a liability for them. We're going to make being pro-Israel very unpopular among the people. We're going to make it a political liability. You want the nomination? You want to win the Iowa caucus, the New Hampshire primary? We're going to make it very painful, metaphorically for you, politically. We're going to make it a political loser among young men, the young men they need to win to support Israel. This is the playbook in 28. And I said about Vance, we're going to squeeze him. You're already seeing it. He went to Ole Miss last week and did a college event, and he was asked by a number of based Groyper college kids, hey, are you owned by Israel? Are you owned by Peter Thiel? Do you support the endless wars? Do you support Palantir? And Vance was having to walk a very fine line. He can't throw Israel under the bus, but he also has to pander to this young crowd. So he said, this president is not owned by Israel. He's not doing everything they say. And a lot of the Jews and the pro-Israel crowd said, what are you talking about? You should condemn anti-Semitism, not reassure them that Israel isn't secretly running the government. Why would you even legitimize that by answering it that way? This is the squeeze. To appeal to us, you're going to lose the Israel donors. To appeal to the Israel donors, you're going to lose the popular support. I said, and we need to be there in 28 to make our voice heard and make sure that we are represented, that we have a seat at the table, that the nominee reflects our priorities. We got to be vocal and loud and visible and present. We have to show up. So Ben Shapiro did yet another show about me today. Bro has been ignoring me for 10 years. He's been running from a debate for me for 10 years. How much longer can little Ben run from a debate with me? He's been running for 10 years. He has been ignoring me, won't say my name for 10 years. 2 shows in a row, back to back this week. And today his show was all about this subject. And Mark Levin said the same thing yesterday. Said, we're going to be watching for 2028. Who associates with who condemns who. We're taking names and we'll make our decisions. And what Shapiro and Levin are saying is that the Jewish cabal is going to get together, and if Vance does not disavow the Groypers, they're going to anoint Marco Rubio. Because that's going to be the primary. It's going to be the Secretary of State and previous presidential hopeful Rubio against the heir apparent, the Vice President, J.D. Vance. And Levin and Shapiro and the rest are intimating that if Vance does not decisively come down on the side of the Israel lobby, they're going to make their decisions. They're going to take his name down. They're going to take note that he didn't condemn us, and they'll make their decisions. They'll go and anoint the other candidate. And to that, I say, let them try. Let them try. The candidate that's against Israel will have the popular support. The candidate that's pro-Israel will have the money support. And if the money candidate wins, they will lose the people in the general, and we're happy to let them lose. Happy to. You want Zohran Mamdani, you want Ilhan Omar to be president? That's how you get it. You drive the wedge on whether we're Israel first or America first. I'd love to see you try. I'd love to see the Israel lobby forfeit an election to a race communist. I'd love to see them eat that and explain that one to the American people. So this is our playbook. This is our playbook that's coming together here based on the reviews. I told you, I think last month, I said the name of the game is penetrate the institutions. Get in there. People say, how can I help? What can I do? If you're high school or college aged, get into your college Republicans and learn how to hide. Learn how to speak their language. Don't sound like a groyper. Don't say based. Don't talk like Nick Fuentes. Talk about Cyrus the Great. You want to know how to conceal yourself? Watch Joe Lonsdale. Watch Joe Lonsdale. Watch Steve Saylor. Watch these assholes. Watch what they say. How do they talk? You know what Joe Lonsdale says? He says, the problem with the modern world is this moral relativism. We have to fight the bad guys, and the bad guys are these Marxist Islamists. It's these Marxists and Islamists. It's these Islamo-communists. It's the Zohran Mamdanis. It's the race communists. It's these Hamas supporters and BLM. The problem is the BLM Hamasification of our universities. There are bad guys and we need to fight them. And we, that's the kind of language you need to speak to conceal yourself. Don't say the words world Jewry. Don't talk like this. Okay? Look at Chris Buskirk. Read Palladium. Read their we got to be the new Straussians. We're the new Straussians. Look at me. We're the Straussians now. We have a Groyper hermeneutic. You want to know how to play? Watch the enemy. Emulate the enemy. Put on your mask and conceal yourself. If you're high school or college aged, get into the college Republicans. Get into Turning Point USA. Try to become the president of those groups. Go to the conferences. Go to CPAC. Go to America Fest and network your ass off. If you're not in college, or if you are, volunteer for a campaign. Volunteer for a Republican campaign and network there. Make yourself useful. Read how to win friends and influence people. Be reliable, smile, listen, shake hands, make eye contact. Do all the things that a good courtier does. Charm them. Kill them with kindness. Endear yourself to them. Make yourself indispensable and always, always conceal what you're really about. And then get into the damn Capitol. Get into the communications team. Get into the legislative team. Get onto the Hill. Get into the administration. Get into the departments and agencies. If you don't know how to do anything, learn how to do media stuff. Build a resume doing social media marketing, video editing, graphics. That's in big demand right now. Get a poli-sci degree, whatever. Or go in the private sector, and you have to hide your power level a little bit less, but get in the private sector. Be a money person. We want to take over the institutions. And I said this a month ago, and people said, idiots said, oh, so what? We should all take over the government now? If they weren't threatened by this, they wouldn't be saying these things. If they were not scared to death about us taking over the institutions, they wouldn't be sounding the alarms right now. They wouldn't be blackmailing Heritage to fire all the Groypers. They wouldn't be telling Heritage to snitch on all the Groypers. They wouldn't be doing it in these organizations and in the admin. Gavin Wax wouldn't blow up his spot doxing those guys if they weren't worried about this. They are, and they're paranoid, and they're black-pilled, and I love it. And you should love it too. These DC creatures, these consultants, these think tank nerds, these dorks and losers, these out-of-touch theater kids and student council presidents, these punks, they are miserable. There's a sense of dread. It has captured them because they know that MAGA is dead. It's dead. It has failed. It is a disappointment. The mass deportations, they're not happening. America First foreign policy, they forgot all about it. Approval ratings in the toilet. Epstein files covered up. Blue wave just happened. But the Groypers are jubilant. The Groypers are triumphant because the Groypers are winning. We're the only ones having fun. All these MAGA people, all these heritage Americans, all these people saying, hey, patriot, are you trusting the plan? These people have been humiliated ritualistically by this administration. All that exuberance from the Cruel Kids table cover, all the exuberance from the election crashed on the rocks on the shore of reality, which is that your guy is owned by Israel, but we are winning. We are ascendant. The energy is with us. We're having fun. Now we're always smiling. Now we're the ones laughing. Now we have the energy. And they're upset because they know that. To add insult to injury, these guys like Patrick Casey, they're left making excuses. Hey guys, don't be anti-Israel. They're getting motherfucking destroyed in the replies. It's over for them. You had your chance. You had your chance. We tried it your way. It didn't work. Now we're going to try it our way. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to infiltrate the institutions. We're going to keep spreading the message, and we're going to double down. No, Tucker, I disagree with you, respectfully. Appreciate the platform. I appreciate the opportunity to express myself, but I maintain my disagreement with him, although I think it's more civil now. We shook hands. I welcome him. I think he is America First. I think one day he'll be fully with us. I really like him as a guy. I thought our interview was excellent, but I maintain the disagreement. It's not about Israeli policy. It's about world Jewry. We're going to keep saying that. We're going to keep making that case because we're right and it's persuasive. And in 2028, we're going to play hardball. It's all for nothing if we don't take it to the Capitol. Don't you understand? We're not fighting for control of the hinterlands. We're not fighting for control of some empty plot of land. We are fighting for control of the Capitol. It's a capital siege, metaphorically. Don't you understand? That's how a war works. You surround and occupy the capital cities of the country. That's what we need to do. New York, LA, DC, we need to occupy, politically speaking, the capital, the center of power. You have to infiltrate the institutions. To do that, we need to play hardball. And in 2028, this is when we make our entrance onto the stage. Maybe there'll be a Republican primary candidate we can back. Who knows what could happen? No one knows what could happen. No one knows what could possibly happen or who might run in 28. Maybe someone will run. I don't know. But certainly we'll be there in Iowa. And if Vance thinks he's the front runner, if Rubio gets the money, we will be there to tell everybody about it. We will be there to tell. And if you think that's not going to play in Iowa, okay, we'll be in New Hampshire too. And then we'll be in Nevada. And then we'll be in South Carolina. It's a long primary season. And Groypers have been chomping at the bit to get involved, and they're everywhere. They have been chomping at the bit. What can I do? I want to get involved. In 2028, it's going to be a long primary season because we'll be there at every stop with homemade signs, and people drive out. People will go where they are summoned, and we will get the message out, and we will play hardball. And we'll make everybody know it's going to be a referendum on Israel first and America first. And if we win, we win. And if they lose, we win. If a Jewish money-controlled Republican candidate loses, we still win. I'm happy to see it, actually. We have to be willing to play hardball if we want to win. We have leverage. We have to use it. Can't always surrender and eat shit. Have to be willing to walk away from the table. That's exactly what we're going to do. And we have to steel ourselves because they will try to take me out, I'm sure, at some point. They will try to kill me. They will try to destroy me in some way. We have to be bullheaded and stubborn, and we have to resist gaslighting, attempts to change the conversation, throw a wrench in things. We have to keep the frame. America first, Israel first. Are you loyal to America? Are you not? Do we have sovereignty? Do we not? And by the way, we can end this at any time when the Israel lobby is ready to acquiesce. When the pro-Israel side is ready to acquiesce to America first, when they are ready to wave the white flag and surrender, it can all be over. For Jack Posobiec and Matt Walsh and all these other guys that just desperately want the infighting to end, I'll be the first one to say, we will accept your surrender at any time. You want to get together and unite and fight the left? You want Nick Fuentes to stop fighting the Republicans? You can wave the white flag at any time and surrender to America First forces. And then we will embrace you, we will bring you in, and we'll be your strongest allies. But it's not going to happen until we put America first. We could do it the easy way, we could do it the hard way. So, where's your money? Where are you going to place your bets? On Ross Douthat at the New York Times? National Task Force for Fighting Anti-Semitism? Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro? Lomez and Chris Rufo's new show on The Blaze? Who the fuck is watching that, by the way? I know how we're going to fight Nick Fuentes. You like Nick Fuentes and the Groypers? You're going to love this. It's Jonathan Kieperman, a Jew academic, and Chris Rufo, who's married to an illegal immigrant from Asia. And they're going to talk about why the left sucks from the studio that brought you the Groypers, from the guys that brought you white niggas going hard as fuck. Here's another Jewish academic who's 50 years old telling you it's about the left. Who the fuck is watching that? How dare you? Do you think that's going to compete with me? Coming to the Blaze. Coming to the Blaze. You. Lomez, Passage Press. The guy sucks. 3 feet tall and the guy sucks. And Chris Rufo's even worse. Eat shit. Place your bets. Who do you think is going to own 2028? Rufo and Lomez, Yoram Hazony and Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, or the white ass niggas going hard as fuck? Who's going to win? Who does the future belong to? Nick Fuentes and Dan B and Myron and Zerka? Yay? Tucker Carlson, hello, welcome to the club. The whole crew, all the rolling 6 million deeper is going to be the de-radicalization agents. It's going to be Curtis Yarvin. Or is it going to be Curtis Yarvin in his cool leather jacket? Curtis Yarvin in his leather jacket. So I think that, like Oliver Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell is like, fuck off. Never gonna happen. We run this. 2028, Groypers run this. 2028, we are gonna run the election. Get ready. I feel good about our odds. Let me know what you want to do. Ball is in your court. What do you want to do? You want to raise the white flag and surrender? Or you want to fight it out? Huh? Ross Douthat. Here's how we're going to stop Nick Fuentes. You don't sound confident. It's not going to go the way you think. We're going to hire a Generation Z ambassador with strategies to get Zoomers to love Israel. Good luck. Anyway. So that is, and last thing I'm going to say, then we're going to move on. We're probably not even going to talk about Zoran. We're out of time. We're not even going to talk about Zoran. We'll talk about him tomorrow. The last thing I'm going to say about it is this. This is where it has to go for there to be political change. Everything has been leading up to this moment. Congratulations, we won that first battle. When they say we lost the information space, they broke in containment, we can't cancel them, we can't marginalize them, we have to let them criticize Israel, that's a huge victory. Because for 10 years, they defended that wall. For 10 years, I have been fighting on that wall, which is they fought really hard to make it so that you could never criticize Israel in any way. And they would strike down anybody that did. They did it to me. So now they throw their arms up and they say, we could never control the information space, not for lack of trying. For 10 years, and even longer, even beyond that, happened with Pat Buchanan. They did successfully enforce that standard. No one could criticize Israel, and they did marginalize anybody that did. They fired, censored, canceled, doxxed, you name it, and everyone went along with it. No one knew, but we overcame. We were persistent. We were resilient. We stuck, you and me. We're a team. We are a team. You stuck by me. I stuck with this. We overcame it. And now in the New York Times, they're saying, I guess we lost control of the information space. We lost that one. I guess we're going to have to let them criticize Israel a little bit. I guess Turning Point is going to have some chapter presidents that think that Israel is Mossad and they're killing Epstein and they did 9/11 and the rest of it. I guess we have to tolerate that. So that was a 10-year phase one battle. We normalized it. We mainstreamed it. We beat censorship, cancel culture. We opened the Overton window. Now we have to aggressively push the advantage, phase two. Get in the places where it counts. Get in the institutions. Control the capital, control the institutions, control the country. And we have to play hardball with the nominee, just like it was in 2016. You got a lot of people that are talking. Some people for 30 years, 50 years have been saying the same things. They go all the way out in the middle of nowhere. And some young, some old, they go out in the middle of nowhere and they get the echo chamber together. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. This is just what they do. This describes all of them. This describes all the different dissident right fiefdoms that have existed over the generations. They go out in the wilderness. They meet with the same rotating group of 300 people. They go over here, they go over there. It's all the same people, just different venues. They say all the same stuff and they just, meh, meh, meh. These are our ideas. Forget that. Take the ideas, bring them forth. Take the ideas, get in the institutions, get power. I'm not interested in ideas. Get power. We have a good enough idea about what we believe. Time to acquire power. That's what matters. That's what we need to be doing. And that's why they're so paranoid. And that's why they're so angry right now. That's why Mark Levin is saying, we're going to make them afraid. We're going to write down their names. You can't write down their names. You're not going to know who they are. You're not going to know where they're coming from, buddy. We're in your walls. That's where this has to go. That's the next evolution of this if we want to see political change. And that's the reason they've always hated me. More than anything. The reason they have zero tolerance for me, it's not just because of what I say. It's because of the fact that I'm an activist, because I'm telling people, you got to get in the system. That's the part they don't like. But anyway, that's that. We're going to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats because we're 90 minutes in. We have no time to talk about Zohran Mamdani. I'm going to have to change the title of the show. So do that. America first. Bring it forth. I will send the army. What are we going to call this one? I'll talk about Zohran tomorrow. Let's see. What would you call this one? Let's say, Israel first, desperate. Okay. All right. Now we'll take a look at our super chats. More important than I mean, look, what happened with Zoran, it's honestly, it's whatever. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. We probably will. But I want to move on. We'll take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about all this. Sign up for the GIA. Sign up for the Groyper Intelligence Agency. Get involved. This is the name of the game. It's what the Mossad does. It's what the CIA does. It's what the Mormon Mafia does. It's what the CIA does. It's what we need to be doing. Time to go underground. All right, but we'll take a look at these. That's the most important message you're going to hear this week. Let's take a look. For the young men, become an agent, okay? Take the oath. I swear I'm going to vote for Kanye. What was the Trump pledge in 2016? Raise your right hand. Mom, I'm pledging. Mom, get out. I'm pledging. No, but that's when he's happened. All right. Let's take a look. Let's see what we got here.
Urban Wildlife Removal Service Groy $50. When Mark Levin strains his voice, he is more likely to get his menorah extinguished by God, sudden heart failure, than he is at appearing orful. Probably training to hide the squeaky nasally reedy voice under a gruff exterior.
You think he sounds tough. He just sounds like a bitch. Mark Levin just sounds like a bitch to me.
All right, let's get right to it. So this entire video, Nick is responding. And I think that a lot of what Nick presents is a response. And I think Nick is going to always be called certain names: anti-Semitic, misogynist, racist, all these different things. And I think that the people who are trying to put him in these categories, a lot of them are some of the worst people in the world. A lot of them are the ones that are campaigning for us to drop bombs on other countries, to go to war with other countries, to continue genocides with other countries, to okay ethnic cleansing happening with other countries, as long as it aligns with your priorities, your agenda, and what suits your personal interest. Whether it's Mark Levin, whether it's Lindsey Graham, whether it's Ted Cruz, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's J.D. Vance, whether it's Josh Hammer, whether it's Ben Shapiro, their issues are because Nick doesn't align and see things the way that they see things, and he has the influence behind him that's going to shift the mindset of everybody else. And they need everybody thinking the exact same way as they propagandize us, as they indoctrinate us from a young age. They need us thinking that way, so therefore they can justify doing all of the other things on their to-do list. That's what I see happening. Lindsey Graham just put out a video talking about we're killing the right people and cutting your taxes at a Jewish Republican coalition event, and that was fine. And then you want to pull up videos from Nick 7, 6, 5, 4 years ago. And what is he discussing? Oh, it's a bad faith joke. Okay, so that's a bad faith joke. What do you say when Officer Tatum is at that same event that I was talking about with Lindsey Graham, that Jewish Republican coalition, and he says, my first response, I turned Gaza into a parking lot, and people start cheering? Is that not demonic behavior? Are those not demonic comments that are being celebrated at a religious event? Is that not a violation of your testaments, your God's testaments? So all these people that want to call Nick certain names and all these horrendous things and want to highlight the things that he said, what about the things that you've directly pushed for, campaigned for, contributed to, been complicit in? Being complicit is too nice. The things that you've actually pushed our government to do, the war and destruction that we've created around the world. Now, we could just talk about this Middle East region and leave it there and have plenty of things to just touch on when it comes to that. But think about all of the death and destruction that we've brought upon other nations because of people like neocons, like Mark Levin, Lindsey Graham, Ben Shapiro, and all these others. Nick is the worst type of guy. Nick is bad. And they don't even realize that when you try to bully people, see, not everybody's going to allow you to be bullied. Sometimes you're going to get punched back in the face. Now, the bully still may win in year 1, still may win in year 2, year 3, year 4. But now when it comes to Nick,
at 27, they've been trying to bully him since he was 18 years old. Ben Shapiro, huge platform, trying to bully Nick and cancel Nick when he just had a few thousand followers on X, trying to cancel him for what? At the same time, you're trying to cancel Nick for a private conversation that was secretly recorded, but you're campaigning for ethnically cleansing Gaza on a huge platform. Very irresponsible. So all of these people, I don't know if it's intentional, if they want people to hate Israel, if they want people to hate Jewish people, if they're trying to get as many people as they can to stand out and say negative things about Israel. Maybe this is part of their plan, because everything that they do, it's like you're not aware of the backlash, and you all are too smart. Israel's too smart. Jewish Americans, Jewish people overall are some of the most successful people in the world. You're too smart, in my opinion, to think that you can do some of these things and people just be okay with it and not generate backlash. If you're actually worried about the safety, especially when it comes to Jewish Americans, then why do you think that the right thing to do is to commit the atrocities and the genocide that you're committing against Palestine and other countries in that region? Why would that make sense? You're trying to force things on us. And once again, that bully may win the first day of school, the second day of school, but now it's gotten to the point where people like Nick, people like Candace Owens, people like Dave Smith, people like Tucker Carlson, people like Theo Vaughn, people like Joe Rogan, people like Thomas Massey, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people are not aligning with this. People are not accepting this bullying treatment. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. You're trying to call Nick, okay, Nick's a racist, all these other things, but you're bringing up the things that he said in shows years ago. Why don't you show what the real problem is, the things that he's talking about policy-wise now? Bring up exactly what America First is. Clearly, the kids that even follow Charlie Kirk, they're asking about it. Bring up what America First represents. Why is that a problem? You're an American, right, Ben Shapiro? You're an American, right, Mark Levin, Laura Loomer? All of y'all are Americans, right? So why is it a problem to put America first? Why wouldn't you put America first? It's your country. Some people have been saying America only. So it's actually pretty gracious to say America first. Obviously, you have to take care of home first. Obviously, you have to put your mask on first. Obviously, we shouldn't be overextending ourselves for other countries at the detriment of American citizens. We can only help out where we're whole. We're helping out another country where people are living better in that country than here, where their citizens have better access to healthcare, free healthcare. They have subsidized schools. You know, when it comes to college, why? Why is America providing all of this aid and assistance, all of this support, moral support, physical support, weapon support? So everybody that questions these things is getting called out. We see the Heritage Foundation president, him getting bullied. We see him pull a complete 180, and you all think that our response is going to be, oh, see, he was wrong in what he said last week. Now he's saying the right thing. No, we're saying it like, damn, those people, what Nick Fuentes said, when Nick Fuentes said they really run stuff, they must really run stuff. That's what we're seeing. We're not forcing y'all to do this. You're forcing everybody else's hand. You're squeezing people into corners, forcing them to either pick fight or flight. Now, a lot of people are gonna fly away, you know, run away, whatever. But the people that are going to fight, those are people like Nick Fuentes and the people that I named earlier that are not going to stand for this. And the thing about it is, they each have a huge influence. So therefore, the people that were already questioning it themselves, that may have looked the other way when they saw it happening previously, there's now a group, a coalition, a different tone, a new culture, a new perspective that is brewing in America. And that's clear going back to that CNN poll, where now is the first time ever where Americans are more sympathetic and empathetic towards Palestine than Israel. Are you just going to blame Americans? Are you just going to say what Josh Hammer and Mark Levin have said as far as Europeans are just inherently anti-Semitic? At what point do you stop playing the blame game? At what point do you accept some accountability and responsibility and say, hey, maybe we're moving in the wrong direction? Maybe we're interpreting this word a little bit differently than we should be interpreting it. Maybe we shouldn't approach things from elitist chosen one's perspective and think that we could just commit harm and treat others the way that we would never accept them to treat us in return. Especially when you consider that a lot of the Palestinians who were living in what is now modern day Israel, am I wrong or right, as far as a lot of them took Jewish people in? They took Jewish people in when nobody else would take them in. Now their land is gone. They weren't compensated for it. They don't have the right to return. You got Bibi Netanyahu through different channels encouraging or funding, right, indirectly Hamas. But then, it's like, are you creating all of this on purpose? Is this just part of the play? Is this just part of to achieve the next play in the greater Israel plan? Now we need to be at war with America. Now, because once we stoke that fire, then maybe somebody will do something to a Jewish person or do something to Israel. Then we'll have reason to retaliate. Like, what is going on? Because it's starting to just get so out of hand that it's like you can't possibly believe that we're going to see it the way that y'all are seeing it right now. That's why I once again asked the question, like, what is going on? Is this done on purpose? Are we all getting fooled? Are we getting punked? What is going on? Let me, I didn't even look at my notes. What did I write in my notes? I didn't have that many notes. But even when they say things like, we're going to fire the people that are groypers or fire, they may not have said word for word, but why are you trying to fire? I thought y'all were with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I'm just talking specifically to, the pro-Israel Zionist Jewish folk. I thought y'all were aligned when it came to Black people on DEI. Right? That's all I heard. Every time I bring up something, it's like, well, traditionally, Black and Jewish people have been aligned. Okay, cool. So I thought you were for diversity, but you're not for diversity of thought. You're not for diversity when that person doesn't agree with what you're saying. You're for diversity as far as bringing Floyd Mayweather to the Republican Jewish coalition. And it's very interesting that you choose Floyd Mayweather. Very convenient, right? I wonder if you all were supporting him when he was going through his legal battles. Not to say that you can't support him now, but I just see how I call it out when Kamala Harris is parading Meg Thee Stallion and Cardi B to try to reach their influence. When I hear Bibi Netanyahu saying that, it's more of a messaging problem, that they have to control TikTok or figure out how to work with Elon Musk on X to make sure that the right message is getting put out there. Why would I believe that you bringing Floyd Mayweather on stage is for anything but that? But to be totally honest, Floyd Mayweather is not that when it comes to, I don't know what type of community you're trying to appeal to as far as using Floyd Mayweather, because Floyd Mayweather is not that in the Black community. I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan. He's one of my favorite athletes of all time. But when it comes to politics or anything outside of boxing, to be totally honest, not really looking for him. Not really checking for Floyd. And like I said, one of my favorite athletes of all time, just based on the work that he's put in, the dedication, the discipline. That's what it's for. You can teach off of that. But this just isn't it. This just isn't it. It doesn't make any sense to me what's going on. And when smart people do things that don't make sense, that's when my antennas go up. That's when my antennas go up. Y'all are my brothers and sisters, right? My fellow Israeli, fellow Jewish brothers and sisters. As your brother and sister, as your brother to my brothers and sisters, this ain't it. This just simply ain't it. What is the goal of all this? Now you're trying to fire people out of politics just because they share views with Nick Fuentes? Let me ask you, this is what I would challenge Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Josh Hammer, Officer Tatum. What is the number one policy? Like, give me 3 policies of Nick Fuentes that you disagree with. Not his rhetoric, not that he says the N-word, not that he made bad jokes that are inappropriate or insensitive, extremely insensitive in some cases. From a policy standpoint, what do you disagree with? Because y'all are conservatives, right? So we're supposed to not be the liberal Democrats and try to appeal emotionally. We're supposed to look at it from a logical standpoint, correct? So therefore, looking at it from a logical standpoint, let's remove the emotional stuff to the side. Let's remove, okay, Nick Fuentes is a racist. He's a misogynist. He's an anti-Semite. Okay, cool. Now let's look at the policies. If we can get that out the window, got it. Agreed. Okay, cool. Let's say that we all agree on that stuff. Let's get into the policies. Which policies do you disagree with him? Do you disagree with the fact that we should prioritize America and be limited in the amount of resources that we give other countries, because clearly we're not in a position to be giving other resources? We're in a whole lot of debt. So do you think that we should be giving another country who's not in the same debt position that we're in, that we should be giving out money? We don't have the access. We have so many disaffected, younger people. We can't afford homes. We can't afford to live. We can't even afford to be in relationships and get married and have kids. We can barely afford to pay for a damn wedding. Should we be prioritizing Israel? Should we be prioritizing America? When we look at what's going on with Donald Trump, when he runs a campaign saying he's going to do A, B, and C, but then it looks like he's getting bullied by Bibi Netanyahu and compromising certain aspects of what he's doing as president, because it seems like there's something else out there. Let's say, for example, Epstein or the JFK files, but very specifically when it comes to Epstein, it's pretty much been put out there that Epstein had some relationship with Mossad, had a relationship with Israel. We can't figure out exactly what happened because all that information is not being given to us, even though Trump promised it. So we're starting to ask these questions. So when we see Trump not doing the things that he said he would do, and we see him listening to people that were never Trumpers, when we follow the money and see, okay, Trump was receiving money from these, should we not connect those dots? Should we ignore that? You guys always want to call out how anybody who disagrees with Israel, right? Candace Owens, she's getting paid by Qatar, right? Qatar is funding all these people. But clearly, we can look it up and see what AIPAC's funding. Clearly, we can look it up and see what, even outside of AIPAC, Miriam Adelson is funding Donald Trump, right? I always get her confused with Madeleine Albright just when I'm getting ready to say it. So that's sometimes why I pause, just so y'all know. Is it okay for us to say, hey, we don't like the direction of the country, we don't like the direction of Trump, and is it okay for us to do the smart thing and then say, like, well, let's see, who gave him money? Let's see why he's not doing the things that he promised he would do. Because obviously y'all are smart enough to understand that a lot of these politicians are controlled by money. That's why you have the lobbying groups in the first place, correct? Do you disagree that Israel should have to, or that AIPAC should have to register as a foreign lobby? If not, I would ask, why does Israel not have to? But then why do other countries' lobbying groups have to? Do you think it's unfair for Israel to receive their aid in the way that they receive aid compared to other countries that we give aid, where their aid gets to accumulate a whole bunch of interest in our banks, and then that interest, they can spend it however they want to? Do you think that it's okay for us to question that, hey, maybe Israel has a bit of too much of an influence on our politicians? Like, are we not allowed to question those things? Is it okay for Nick Fuentes to say Christ is king? Because I've never heard, or I haven't really heard, a lot of people coming out saying that it's not okay I haven't heard Ben Shapiro saying Jewish people should never believe that they're the chosen ones. So is Nick Fuentes allowed to say Christ is king? Because Bibi Netanyahu always likes to remind us that Israel is the first Jewish state. I believe America was founded on Christian principles. So is it okay for Americans to celebrate Christian principles, to prioritize Christian principles, to prioritize Christ? I'm just asking. What else do you disagree with when it comes to Nick Fuentes? Y'all made it so simple. You created Nick Fuentes. Now Nick Fuentes talented. And like he said on here, nobody does what he does better than him. I mean, the results do kind of say that. I don't know too many people that are doing what he's done from their basement, facing the type of scrutiny that he's faced, the banning, the cancel culture that a lot of powerful, strong, influential people have tried to hold him back. He's still pushing. You made it easy for him, though. And I don't mean you made it very difficult when it comes to all the things that y'all did, as him not getting a bank account, all these. I'm not talking about that, because I definitely don't want to take credit away. Nick is going through things that most people will never even dream of overcoming. But what happened is you guys made it too simple. Perhaps you underestimated him. Perhaps you underestimated Americans' ability to think. Now this is just clear as day. Now, the majority of Americans, Democrat or Republican or independent, if you hear Nick's policies and the argument that he makes on his policies compared to the arguments that Ben Shapiro will make on policies, or Mark Levin or Lindsey Graham or whoever else was speaking at the Republican Jewish Coalition, who do y'all think most Americans is going to want to listen to? See, that's why y'all will criticize Tucker Carlson for how he interviewed Nick Fuentes, but Ben Shapiro will never grow the nuts to do it himself. Why don't you interview Nick? Why don't you have him on for a debate? Why don't you let somebody moderate the debate? You won't debate him. You won't debate Dave Smith. You won't debate Candace Owens. But why don't you debate Nick? Mark Levin, why don't you debate Nick? Why don't you all put it out there for the rest of America to see, an exchange of ideas? Why not? It's because you know you're on the losing side of the arguments. You know that people don't believe in your product no matter how you try to market it. So therefore, the only thing that you do, the best tactic that you feel that you have on your side, is to make him out to be a monster. So people will go into it, whatever he says, you'll go into it with the mindset of, oh, this person said this person said that. Now I don't even like that person. I go into him already liking him, or already not liking him. But the problem is you overestimated how much people care about. Nick Fuentes said the N-word. All right. You don't think that Black people believe that most people, that most white people use that word a lot more than they actually will admit? Like we're aware. Like, in case y'all didn't know, we know. Like, we kind of expected that. Not it doesn't hit as hard. Oh, he talked about women. He talked about he made a joke about women liking rough sex. Okay. The reason why people are not with you, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Josh Hammer. The reason why people are not with you is because of you. It's because of your stance. Let me say this. It's because of your stance first and foremost. But then it's also because the way y'all go about defending your stance makes you very unlikable. Very unlikable. Yes, more unlikable than racist, misogynist, anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, if we're just being real. Y'all are extremely unlikable. And that combination of being unlikable and people disagreeing with your stance and you having this arrogant mindset as if you're attacking, and rightfully so, in the name of God or in the name of whatever else you serve, people that don't agree with you, it's not hitting home. Nobody's scared of you. The bullying tactics of a overweight older man, like nobody's intimidated by you. Nobody's intimidated by Josh Hammer. Nobody's intimidated by Ben Shapiro. And perhaps the only thing that you can do is what Nick Fuentes started off by saying, which is he was reporting that now people are going to They're going to fire people from their jobs. Oh, okay. You're talking like a tough guy, Mark Levin, like you're getting ready to fight Nick Fuentes, like in a physical confrontation. But then what do? Oh, we're going to fire him. We're going to use our position of privilege to or position of power to fire them. We're not really like we're not rocking with that. It just makes you look more and more unlikable. I got to get out of here. Y'all know, as always, appreciate y'all liking, subscribing. Give me some feedback. First, above all else, shouldn't say above all else, but I really would appreciate when y'all give some feedback in a comment. Thumbs up, thumbs down. If it is a thumbs down, let me know exactly why. My bias may be pointing me in the wrong direction and not allowing me to be objective and creating some blind spots for me. So y'all let me know. That's why I like to have the conversations with y'all. I'll see y'all in the next video.
It's the black guy in the corner, but they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, D.C. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly, Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victimhood mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times for Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciating the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message. We gonna keep pushing, man. And shout out to the haters too, cause y'all in the comments heavy too. y'all the ones that gave me the inspiration to create this song. They kept saying like, who's the random black guy in the corner? I am.